Hi, I'm David Gregg, Director of the Rhode Island Natural History Survey, and you're watching the January 2023 meeting of the Rhode Island Woodland Partnership, an alliance of organizations and individuals concerned with conservation of Rhode Island's forests for all their ecological, recreational, and economic benefits. The focal topic for this month's meeting is the Rhode Island Woodland Partnership's strategic plan. Now, I know strategic planning might not sound as interesting as some of the presentations we've heard over the last year or so, but if you're interested in Rhode Island woodlands, this discussion is a great way to catch up on what's happening in policy, outreach, management, and conservation, and what various organizations and departments are working on. So, bend an ear, and I hope you enjoy it. The Rhode Island Natural History Survey presents videos to showcase the animals, plants, geology, and natural systems that surround us, and the people and organizations working to understand and conserve them.
So welcome to the first Rhode Island Woodland Partnership meeting of 2023. It's good to see everyone here. The focal topic of our meeting today is going to be reviewing the responses to the Woodland Partnership Strategic Plan Update Survey, and hopefully some discussion and dialogue related to that. And then we'll get into policy and partner updates. Don't have a guest presenter today while we're working on one for the February meeting, and thinking ahead to our next field trip as well. But as we usually do, we'll just I think everyone may know each other here. I don't even think we need to do the introductions. So that's nice. Well, I'll bring up the survey response info, which I did share earlier in the week. Hope that some of you may have had a chance to review it. And this is just intended to be a very informal walkthrough of it. Haven't done any further analysis. I've been a bit out of the pocket myself just lately, but I'm hoping it will lead into a discussion of how we want to go forward. All right. So I just want to confirm that everyone can see that. All right, sounds like that's affirmative. We'll head away. So this was the survey that's Kate and I put together. With the responses collected through Google Forms in November and December. Ended up getting 12 folks responding to the survey. 9 of whom have been members of the Woodland Partnership for a long time, and of those, half the people coming from land trusts and nonprofit organizations. Did get three businesses, 2 government agencies, and 1 university. And just as we launch into it, I just will mention or remind everyone that we actually are coming up on the 10-year anniversary of the Woodland Partnership this April, and that is, that's a milestone to think about. So, we'll think about where we want to go from here. So, getting into the questions now. People, most people pretty familiar with the Woodland Partnership. I think we had, 3 newer folks to the partnership who responded to the survey, and we're glad to have their input. But half of the participants participating in many or most meetings, and a quarter of them having participated more in the past. So pretty well versed on what we're doing. People plan to be an active participant in the Woodland Partnership over the next 3 years. Thought the responses to this are pretty encouraging in that, half the respondents anticipate participating in more meetings than they do now. And then another 33% anticipating, maintaining their participation. And of course, not everyone can be, sure of their plans going forward. So there is some continued commitment and interest in the Woodland Partnership. So now getting into the strategic plan focal areas, you'll recall that there are 3 different focal areas. We'll go through them individually, just starting with stewardship. We'd asked about what people thought were the most important of 5 different focal areas. Asked folks to rank them on a scale from 1 through 5, and those were following up on oak resiliency work, continuing the momentum on forestry for Rhode Island's birds, climate smart forestry, some sort of urban forestry priority activity, and then cross-boundary initiatives with neighboring states. Of course, that would be Connecticut and Massachusetts. And from what I'm seeing from this bar graph here is what sort of rising to the top is that there's a lot of interest in climate smart forestry, also the urban forest priority activity, also the cross-boundary initiatives. Well, that's not right up at the top of the list, but that we would like to see that integrated into our work somewhere. And then there's really a whole diversity of opinion on the oak resiliency there, but some interest in that as well. Less on forestry for Rhode Island's birds. I'm going to guess, part of that's because there's been, a lot of work, excellent work that's been done on that by Kate and Paul and RC&D and NRCS, and it's us, just continuing to get that out there now. Of course, there's plenty more that we can do with wildlife and other, priority stewardship activities.
Hey, Christopher.
Yes.
I don't want to interrupt, but can you zoom in?
How's that?
Maybe one more.
One more?
Yeah.
Good? Okay. Thanks. So here are people's responses to other, priority stewardship activities that we could focus on, from, working on, hosting, hands-on management workshops, like controlling invasives or chainsaw training, working on low-grade wood markets. That could certainly fit into the economic focus area, forest health, and biodiversity and forest protection. So we'll note that there. Scroll down here, and we asked people if they themselves or their organization would be up for contributing to working on stewardship activities, and if so, which one? And you can see that actually, following up on the oak resiliency work, got the highest number of responses here, perhaps because that is really almost universal. If you're working in Rhode Island forests and it's hard to do forest stewardship in Rhode Island if you're not going to touch on oak resiliency in some way. And it matches up with, I think, so many different organizations' missions in some way or another. And then you can see climate smart forestry coming in with 7 votes, and then the cross-boundary initiatives there. So moving on here, since there, had some discussion about urban forest conservation and stewardship, and how to we might more fully integrate that into the Woodland Partnership and its missions. And here are people's responses. Really, quite a range of responses. Working with partners who are working on or already working on urban tree canopy and urban forestry issues. How we can bridge gaps, create kind of get into those networks and partnerships. some strategic planning guidance for, urban woodlands and natural areas, becoming more involved with tree equity, and developing people's relationships with trees in urban areas, promoting awareness of the values of urban forests, the connection between human health and tree equity, resiliency in urban areas. Echoing some of the above, working on more permanent conservation and active stewardship of park, woodlands, and Providence and other urban areas. And then there are a couple of more complex responses here, with some questions in them. I'm just going to leave these up for a screen on the moment so that you can read them yourselves as I'm digesting them along with you. So I thought this was one of the most, interesting, areas of the survey, and hope that we, we'll touch on this in our discussion after we go through the results. So the next question about, working on urban forest conservation and stewardship. Yes, half of the respondents, the organizations are, interested in doing that. And I think, everyone supports this. It's sort of a question of, where or how, or just, how their, organization might fit in, or what type of project it is what I'm taking from that one. Now I'll move on to the next focus area, and this is the policy in economics. I'm asking respondents to rank, of these three focus areas, what they thought was most important and least important. We have the best practices for combining forestry and renewable energy, and identifying barriers and improving opportunities for forest-related businesses, and estate and succession planning for forest landowners. And I think what we see here is it's the best practices for combining forestry and renewable energy that rises to the top here. Certainly, this is something that the Woodland Partnership and some members in particular, have worked on a lot over the past couple of years in identifying the need for, continued, work in that area. Also see, quite a bit of interest in this estate and succession planning for forest landowners, and less so on, the forest-related businesses. And I think there is, a lot of interest in that from, some partners, obviously, those who are, working in forest-related businesses. And I think this is an area that DEM is certainly interested in supporting as well. We asked about other priority policy and economics activities that we should consider focusing on. Just read through the responses. But, sort of training the trainer program to assist the members to be equipped to assist municipalities in understanding and promoting sensible solar siting, funding for forest conservation in general, shifting our thinking in terms of economic value, and thinking that that's sort of from the sort of traditional economic values of the forest more towards ecosystem services. And then someone mentioned the New England Forestry Foundation's, building with wood initiative, and how climate smart forestry fits into the climate and resiliency response picture for New England and beyond. As many of you know, they just got a huge USDA grant to work on that. And, they have indicated some interest in doing more work in Rhode Island. So scrolling down, who's up for working on what in policy economics? Not surprisingly, given what we've seen above, the largest number of respondents are up for working on best practices, for combining forestry and renewable energy. In second is the estate and succession planning for forest landowners. I'll add to that, one sort of current project that some of us are working on is adapting the Protecting Your Legacy publication for forest landowners. That's current in Massachusetts and a number of other states, to one for Rhode Island landowners. And then, some interest in the forest business topics and valuing forest ecosystem services here as well. And then we also asked questions about how the Woodland Partnership can start to integrate diversity, equity, and inclusion into our work. And I think we might have gotten more responses to, suggestions, for this one than anything else. Just reading through them, get more Black, Indigenous, and people of color involved in the meetings. Work with equity-focused organizations to introduce, forests to those communities. Walks and stewardship projects. Someone responded, I think it's a great question. They're not really sure. Some mentioned, working on urban forestry initiatives and projects. Working with similar organizations, who are already doing justice, equity, diversion, and inclusion work, and what we can learn from them on engaging non-traditional audiences. And there's a new environmental justice staff person with DEM who might be able to work with us on that front. There's one on business and school group collaboration focused on sustainable forestry education, with an emphasis on groups that have historically been excluded from forestry. Just seeking to have Woodland Partnership members, represent a range of ages, genders, and backgrounds that are more reflective of Rhode Island's current population, and also integrating urban forestry, holding meetings in South Providence, and then here's a point about doing some self-examination and consideration before reaching out, so we don't cause more harm with good. And they mentioned the phrase "not about us, without us," in that we're not just inviting some representatives from these groups just to a seat at the table, as it were, but a more holistic opening up of all ourselves, and it's going to require some change in the approach and thinking of all of us here, certainly including myself as the co-coordinator. Going down to question 12. So, you're interested in working on diversity, equity, inclusion, and you can see that, vast number of, respondents are interested in this topic. We're up for working on it, or maybe sort of a question of how. I think for the maybe is sometimes with organizations that might focus on more rural forestry projects, or you can see a response there. I'm sure that's from John Mitchell at the Narragansett Bay, Estuarine Reserve, and how to do that when their work is focused out on Prudence Island. Moving on, so we wanted to see how members would they consider spending a small percentage of their time helping organize or manage woodland partnership activities. And I think the take-home message here is that yes, people are up for doing this, particularly leading or hosting woodland partnership trips or events, or representing the partnership at other events, the Land and Water Conservation Summit, for example, or a conservation district event. Some folks indicating some capacity to help with communications. That's to me, that's very encouraging to see the five who may be up for helping with web communications, since that's something that I struggle to have the bandwidth for, and it's kind of scary when the foresters are trying to be webmasters too while learning on the job, and a few offers of some other skills as well. Then we're coming towards the end here. Other organizations or individuals that we should invite to be members of the Rhode Island Woodland Partnership. See if there are any universities that have environmental or forest-focused student organizations that would like to participate in the partnership. That's an interesting suggestion. Certainly we've talked about more university involvement for years. And of course I am, representing URI now on the partnership, but it has been a kind of a tough nut to crack and getting deeper involvement. But perhaps, student organizations could be a good way to go. We saw the passion and interest from the Brown students in their presentation at the December meeting. What about the Audubon Society and TNC or other land trusts? Certainly we do have some land trusts who are very, very much involved. Of course, we know that Rhode Island's land trusts, many of them have limited capacity, and certainly the Rhode Island Audubon has been a very active participant in the partnership over the years. And we see that we're going to see another response further down here, indicating that it would be beneficial to get the Nature Conservancy as a more active partner. Mentions a couple other organizations here: Groundwork Rhode Island, organizations working on urban parks, such as the Roger Williams Park Conservancy, and the Narragansett Indian Tribe, and or other indigenous groups. What about the Rhode Island Black Business Association, the Progreso Latino, or others? And finally, a number of suggestions here, including some of those organizations that we just mentioned, including the Rivers Council or some other groups that are, have their core focus on energy, wildlife, wild plants, watershed organizations. We've certainly talked about the Rhode Island Environmental Education Association over the years too. And then just finally, I'll mention that there was the education focus area of the current or just completed strategic plan that had some ambitious goals, some of which we've worked on with different ways, but we came to the conclusion that is best integrated into the stewardship and policy and economics focus areas of the plan. And then there are a number of our member organizations are very much actively working on this in different ways, but we thought it didn't make sense to continue to have that as a standalone focus area. Before I close the or I leave the screen share here, is there anything that anybody would like to take a look at again? All right. Hearing none, I'm going to close the survey and bring us back into the our squares and for our response and discussion period. So we can just take a moment to reflect on the survey responses, and that then we can talk about it. And I hadn't sort of come up with a formal sort of framework for how we might discuss it. So I have some thoughts, but I'll just open it up to the floor, and as we usually do, you can just respectfully speak in turn or raise hands, and we'll have our discussion as we typically do.
Hi, Christopher. It's Mark.
Mark.
Hey, I just I'm sorry I didn't get to participate in the survey. I'll admit it. It's a busy time of December there when it came through, but it sounds like there's a pretty strong interest in well, maybe you can help me sum up any shifts in focus from what we've been doing. And it sounds like, the urban and the inclusiveness topics were pretty popular topics in there. And I'm just, being a traditional forester, I'm not sure what that would look like for us. And we've had in the past the involvement of the Rhode Island Tree Council. John Campanini used to be a pretty active participant in our discussions, meetings and all that. Other than the Providence Planting Program, I'm not sure who else from the urban side of things has really been involved, or who has expressed an interest in being more involved. Can anybody speak to that aspect of it? If we were to go in that direction with some of our focus, who the players would be, what sort of things that we would be tackling to go there?
This is Caleb, and I'm on a job site trying to beat the rain. But just to throw this out there as kind of like a working piece, I'm connecting with Southside Community Land Trust in the spring for some field trips, and we hadn't I was going to do some stuff on ecoforestry with field trips to the forest plot, and I hadn't expanded it a bunch from that. It's going to be kind of like woodworking process for the kids, but the kids are from Providence, Pawtucket, and Central Falls. And I don't know if that's the type of thing that survey respondents were talking about. But just as one example, that's a partnership that seemed like it developed pretty organically, just wanting to get kids out into the woods. So I just wanted to share that, and then I'll be quiet and stop my video.
Thanks, Caleb.
So one issue or that I saw as coming up is just how to engage in sort of the urban sort of forestry sphere, and there being different ways we can do that. One is that there are some of the urban sort of tree planting, programs, sort of maintenance of street trees, trees on private lots in the city and so forth. And there's some organizations such as Groundwork Rhode Island, the Providence Neighborhood Planting Program, City Forestry, and not just in Providence, I might add. It's certainly in other municipalities around the state. And then there's the issue of urban woodlands that happen to be located in a heavily populated area, whether it's within the Providence metro area or there's some urban woodlands in Newport or a bunch of other municipalities, and those are sort of a bit different areas, perhaps a bit different skill set for the some of the forest stewardship work involved, or how you might do that. So there's some different potential directions that we could go there.
I always thought that the difference between urban, like what you said, Christopher, urban woodland versus street trees was significant, because it just seems like there's the gap between like what you think about when you're out in a rural area and what you think about in an urban area. The gap to me seems really to occur between urban woodland and street tree, not between rural woodland and urban woodland. Those are similar. So I don't know, if it were just me, I'd probably advocate, something that looks at urban woodlands, about engagement with the neighborhoods, about understanding what they are and how they work, and assisting in stewardship issues, those kinds of things. That's the way I see it.
Thanks, David. Doug, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like that's our wheelhouse, and we're looking at urban woodlands, and we can provide help in master planning around urban woodlands. I don't know, model specs. We have that expertise to offer towns. And I know the city of Providence is working on an urban forest master plan at the moment, with a focus on equity. And we could provide some assistance with that portion of the plan that has to do with urban woodlands in Providence. But that is just an example that could be used in other towns and cities around the state, coming up with model strategies or whatever it might be. But I also like the idea of bringing, introducing kids to the woodlands, whether it's within cities or outside. I think that's a great long-term effect and importance in that.
So do we have certain folks that are, I'm not sure how this gets plugged into our update of our strategic plan, but I think one thing that comes to mind is identify those people who are either already on participating in the partnership or are interested in, invite a couple of new organizations to participate, and then maybe have them be the subcommittee, so to speak, that sends us, that contributes something that we can plug into our plan. Say here are some specific other than just a general idea about promoting urban woodlands and their management, etc., then come up with a couple of specific goals or activities that we could incorporate into our strategic plan. That's my problem is, as a traditional forester, is wrapping my head around what in those two areas, inclusion equity, the urban ideas, what can we do to help? How can we help?
One idea that bubbled up for me in reading through those responses is if we might want to see if we could get a sort of a third coordinator, maybe, whose work is especially or largely in in urban woodlands or in urban areas. Certainly we could use the capacity. We're going to talk more about that later to do these things, but having someone aboard who's really doing that every day and involved with coordinating the partnership, I think could help towards that end. I'm not sure who that would be, but I could reach out to partners involved. I see Doug
I have an idea.
Matt, yeah, or an idea.
Possibly Carrie Drake from the
That's good.
Blackstone Parks Conservancy. They've developed one urban woodland plan already, and I think are working on another. So there's experience there and on what was successful and what wasn't, and the programming that came out of it.
That's a good suggestion. And had become aware of the Woodlands Partnership, and had thought of the Blackstone Park, which is on the east side of Providence, in between the east side neighborhoods and the Seekonk River, as a possible upcoming site for a field tour. Full disclosure, I am working on a updated forest stewardship plan for them right now, but there is a lot of interest in energy there, and that's an interesting suggestion.
Hey, Doug, who is it you're representing here? Because I know you're not working with the city anymore, correct?
Yeah, I'm representing myself and this Old Tree Consulting.
Well, okay, all right.
Right. Yeah, everybody have anything that they'd like to bring up or talk about on our involvement in the urban forestry area in Rhode Island? And I know some people have expressed some bandwidth or connection issues. So if you're not able to chime in and speak, feel free to put it in the chat too. Doug.
Oh, sorry, one more comment. You mentioned Groundwork Rhode Island, and they have a large grant in multiple towns. I think Central Falls, Cumberland, Providence. So I don't know what their bandwidth is to get involved in another group, but they are actively doing things in multiple jurisdictions in the urban sphere, like tree planting.
That's a good suggestion. Different groundwork staff members have participated in the in partnership meetings when they've been available, and given a presentation on their planting project in Pawtucket and Central Falls that had very, very high participation for that Zoom meeting. That's Kid or I can reach out to them and see if they may have the capacity to regularly participate. And then they are now responsible managing a grant that gets into some of the upper parts of the Blackstone watershed too. That are that's not street tree territory.
So Christopher, this whole discussion reminds me of the survey's own discussions about DEI and how to be more inclusive in our programs. And our programs have been so focused on suburban white issues that it's really hard to find a genuine way to connect with urban audiences or DEI audiences. And one of the things that we've concluded is that in order to that we have to lay groundwork first, and that would take the form of a long-term partnership with the right organization, even though it's not spread all across the state. Find a project or find a partner organization that has experience and is working in an area that you think you could contribute to, and then work with that organization over a period of time, rather than just sort of jump around trying to find any urban person to, you know, join the Woodland Partnership. Essentially pick one and stick with them and be a meaningful partner over time. And then you'd be in a position to expand once you had experience and a better understanding of the lay of the land. And this whole conversation kind of reminds me of that conversation. And I think, you know, people have been throwing out ideas, and that's great. You want to start, you know, kind of with the large universe of ideas, but it seems like since the Woodland Partnership is, you know, essentially a collaboration and doesn't really have its own capacity, it would be best to pick, you know, one partner or one geographical locus or one issue, and try to build up a meaningful, like be a meaningful partner on that for a little while, and get our kind of urban, you know, orientation, and develop a, you know, show up, be a familiar face in that environment before we go and try to find, you know, partners willy-nilly. That's my kind of thinking on this.
So choosing one project or sort of area to focus on, and sticking with that rather than more sort of scattered involvement.
Yeah, I mean, if there's, and I'm just making this up, but, you know, like, let's say Nutaconkinut Hill Conservancy is doing a strategic plan and, you know, trying to figure out how to roll out, I don't know, a neighborhood steward program. Maybe, you know, we could form a long-term relationship and connect and help them make that a success. Or, you know, some other, you know, something in Central Falls that's related to, you know, that urban woodlands, some, you know, there's find a place that's got some movement, some impetus behind it, and see what we can bring to the table.
Thanks. Good suggestion. Just trying to multitask a little bit here and tap out a response. Nancy, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I would have to concur with David on that. It's to me, it's more a matter of what are your strengths and what do you have to offer? What do you have the capability to offer to people who are, you know, working and already leading on things? You know, because if you look at what's happening in urban forestry, and certainly the urban forestry program with DFE is doing a fair number of things, applying for grants. I know that Groundworks is looking at putting together another grant when the IRA money comes available for the 1.5 billion urban money. So there's a lot of things happening, and it's perhaps more a matter of identifying who are the people doing things and what does the partnership have or capacity. So for example, the woodlands, the urban woodlands, because certainly green space and those kinds of things, and what those spaces contribute to community. So if you look at some of the developing what's left of green space in a community like Warwick or something like that, there's a lot of pressures on those particular things. So, I mean, my perspective is that you can be a voice that brings people together. I think there are things. I like the solar kind of aspect. I like the planning aspect. I think there's things because the perspectives and the skills. So more coming alongside and identifying things that are already happening that you can add value to, because that's kind of where we are. The urban program is putting together a proposal to do some green infrastructure planning, storm, water, a number of pieces for small communities in Rhode Island. And there are things that we would love to have other voices and perspectives, being able to contribute into that. So I know there's things happening. It's just whether, you want to lead on something or you want to come alongside, build those relationships and those connections within the capacity that you have, but adding value. Because I found in 5 years in being in Rhode Island is with everybody volunteering and so engaged, because there's such a small pool to pick from, is that it can be very hard for individuals. You invite individuals to say, hey, come have, but there's only so much time that any of you have. But by picking something and identifying how you can help, I think, and narrowing down the broadness of that vision to something specific, like what David said or what Doug said, would, I think, be a great way to start narrowing that focus.
Thanks, Nancy. All good suggestions. Just thinking about this sort of structure of our discussion, so you're just here on out, and just thinking of the time too, but in things that we want to cover. I wanted to just have the opportunity anyway to speak about the two focal areas more, being stewardship more broadly, and then the policy and economics focus area. Then talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice, and then talk about the capacity of the Woodland partnership. Does that sound like a reasonable order to go? Sounds good. Well, if nobody has anything on urban forests conservation more specifically, why don't we open it up and sort of segue into stewardship more broadly, since that seems like a natural direction to go. Again, we're calling the interest in climate smart forestry, and cross the border initiatives that came up, and then sort of oak resiliency coming up in many different ways.
Christopher, or somebody, can you refresh us on what the where the oak resiliency project is and what its next steps are? Like how well developed is the strategic direction for that, even that idea, let alone
Sure.
Woodland partnership?
So the 3-year Forest Service landscape scale restoration grant officially concluded in September. I guess the last activities were a sort of a oak resiliency sort of lessons learned summit, the Norcross Wildlife Sanctuary over the summer. I guess I presented at the International Oak Society's conference late summer, and there's a publication that's going to come out in their journal in the spring, hopefully. And as with most products or projects, it you know, pointed to more questions and needs. One area that we didn't really have to have the opportunity to drill down into more, and it was actually the source of some of our first, you know, conversations that led to that grant, was the issue of abundant, you know, deer populations and impacts on forest regeneration that I think we're feeling, you know, particularly acutely, you know, here in Rhode Island, you know, compared to our you know, our neighbors in Connecticut and Mass. We had hoped to have some or more engagement with the, you know, wildlife biologists and you know, wildlife professionals. The pandemic, you know, prevented us from having some of the in-person events that we had hoped to, that might have led to some sort of cross-pollination of ideas. That, you know, perhaps that this could be some, you know, something for an upcoming or future grant proposal. But that's where I'd summarize, you know, where things are briefly.
Hey, I would be in favor of, even if it's not region-wide, here in Rhode Island, us taking the lead on getting together with the Fish and Wildlife folks to have that conversation with deer. We've been, is Fern still on? Yeah, Fern's here. You know, we've had conversations about them about developing a deer management program. If they'll just even acknowledge that there is a problem, that maybe that would be a big accomplishment on our part, is to get them to recognize and acknowledge. But maybe that's a specific activity that we as a partnership could get involved with sometime in the next year or two.
Good suggestion.
Any comment, Fern, on said?
Not really anything specific. Obviously, Dylan Ferreira has the most say in that particular area. I have spoken with him about it, and it is something he has said is on his future radar, but it's sort of a farther future. And I really don't know when that would be.
I was trying to remember if anybody else on at this today was part of the deer abatement working group that we had in like 2005. It was convened by Amica because of the expense of cars smashing into deer, and we went around and around for about a year, monthly meetings, and ended up just kind of everybody walking away. It's a problem that's so important. Nobody seems to make any headway on it. Yeah, it would be, it could completely consume every spare minute. But starting a conversation or energizing a conversation that's already kind of just quiet would be a benefit, even if we hardly made any headway. Maybe we could just have a program or two on the subject, and kind of informational program on the subject this year that would just help to raise the profile or create a dialogue or a discussion, and then see where we go from there.
Recall we had the presentation from the Forest Ecosystem Monitoring Cooperative a few months ago on some of their tools and their, you know, deer impact browse assessment project that they're working on, you know, particularly as they're relatively new partners in Southern New England, and it was indicated that that's, you know, of strong interest to the 3 Southern New England state agencies. So perhaps that's something that they could be involved with. They're going to be one of the focal speakers of the Yankee Division Society of American Foresters meeting coming up next month. Anything else on oak resiliency?
Was Christopher, was the project, the work that Jeff Ward was doing on the plots and around the region, and I know he's retired and JP Barsky was supposed to take over, but is that still ongoing? And was that part of the oak resiliency grant?
Some of it was, some of it was not. Jeff is continuing to do the monitoring as a emeritus member of the Connecticut Agricultural Station staff. And what he reports is that the preliminary data on the plots inside and outside the slash walls, suggests that they're working. Hasn't been much time so far, but he Jeff certainly is a wealth of information, and along with JP, whoever may be replacing him at the ag station, if I hope that they do hire another station forester, that's a key forestry partner in southern New England there. So I'll use the resiliency just to tie into the sort of climate smart sort of forestry work, because they really go hand in hand. As you know, I'm involved with the climate adaptive silviculture project through URI and the research and demonstration site down at the Hillsdale or Decopit management area. And so I will, can do all I can to champion that particular area. I guess that the treatments may not be cut or implemented just as soon as we had hoped. But with all this Inflation Reduction Act, funding that I understand is coming down the pike, my understanding is that there's a lot of it is going to be targeted at climate or resiliency related activities. So that's something to keep in mind. The agency folks who I've been in communication with don't have specifics yet of grant programs or just where funds are being allocated. But as that comes into focus, we may need to scramble to put together a proposal or something like that. Mark,
because are you talking about expanding on demonstration sites, or actually doing the outreach, getting the doing the extension work, getting people out there, putting
both
workshops? Yeah.
I had put in a sort of a proposal concept to the USDA Northeast Climate Hub that would both exchange, ramp up the sort of outreach or extension aspect of it, and then the demonstration parts, not unlike the foresters, for the birds project, maybe looking at small scale properties, since we have so many of those in Rhode Island, and it's not advancing at this time, but I think the general concept may be of interest to one funder or another.
Well, you can count on RIFCO to get people out to your demonstration.
Absolutely.
Whether or not there's any funding, we'll be doing a workshop out there once you get that place ready.
Absolutely. Well, I'll be coming to you to see if we can do the summer there, one of the tours there, or a workshop. just talk for a moment about cross-border initiatives and what that might bring up in people's minds. Because I'm thinking, it makes me think of the Southern New England Heritage Forest, RCPP, which was itself, that was inspired by the Forest Service landscape scale restoration grant that really worked on the Woodland ambassador peer education model on that same geography. I think one of the reasons that it was successful, both were successful in getting funded, is that it was a multi-state proposal.
When I think about interstate things, the thing that comes to mind is, and it actually kind of goes against the answers in the survey, but is trying to figure out how to create a sufficiently large regional, economy in wood products to support these infrastructure intensive or investment intensive, capital intensive businesses like sawmills, or we had talked about, I think, maybe biochar at one point. And obviously Rhode Island, well, I suspect Rhode Island is not big enough to support one of these capital intensive industries by itself, but if there were enough, if there was enough business in Connecticut, Mass, and Rhode Island, then maybe so. But the survey showed that kind of the economics of wood products was maybe sort of a little far down on the priority list. So anyway, but that's what comes to mind to me when you say that interstate thing, is that aspect about critical mass of forest business.
Mm-hmm. It seems like a good opportunity to move into the policy and economics focus area, and perhaps talk about the wood products markets and business opportunities area that I think is an area of intense interest for some members of the partnership, even if it's not a majority of organizations. I can understand why it's not the main thing on the agenda for some of the nonprofit organizations involved, for example.
Doug, before you move on, Doug, did I step on you when you were about to comment on the interstate issue?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Let's see. And just looking to Amanda's comment in the chat here. I think Amanda's speaking to the value of cross border initiatives to discuss collaboration, to promote working on messaging in a way that we're presenting a more coherent, coordinated message, rather that's something that's harder for forest landowners, for example, or the public to take in. Feel free to add to that, Amanda, if you like. And then agriculture is we're working on that now, and there's more that we can do on the forest side. Mark, I know that RIFCO's or the working group of RIFCO's been pretty involved in the business initiatives, or trying to organize woods operators to address that. on their own, or to have the Forest Conservation Commission look into that? And would you care to comment on that?
Well, yeah, primarily there's a couple of RIFCO members who are in the wood business that, namely primarily Bob Verrier, who has kind of taken the ball and run with it. He was encouraged by the response from Ken Ayers to help out. With the Farm Bureau to help out with their efforts to put loggers on the same footing as farmers as far as the sales tax exemption for buying equipment. And that sort of got him going. And now he's got an organization called the Rhode Island Wood Operators Organization that's, I believe it's got it incorporated. He's going to try to get like a trade association status for the organization. He's been talking to a grant writer. They're talking about, and I guess the Division of Ag has pledged their support for some sort of an outdoor, like something like a woodsman's show or field day of some sort, like down at the Washington County Fairgrounds. I don't know if that's moving ahead or not, but yeah, he's taking the ball and running with it. It's one of those spin-off things that, a conversation here and a conversation there got things going for him. And it could be a good thing to help. Mm-hmm. One of his goals is to improve the training and raise the level of professionalism amongst the wood operators. And kicking and screaming, some of them will end up doing it, and some will go their own way. They're a very independent bunch, as you can imagine. And but another big issue they have is a lot of them are getting old, and they're trying to figure out a way to bring new people in. So there's that aspect of it too. They figure if they can raise the professionalism, raise the pay, improve the workers' comp situation, that they'll be able to get more people involved. Right now, he's got the arborists lumped in with the organization, and which is a good thing because there's strength in numbers. But it's also a little bit of a divergence away from the agricultural end of things. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but yeah, it's working out pretty good for him, I guess, so far.
Thanks for that update. Do you think, of course, many of the woods operators, they're working in the woods at 1 o'clock on Thursdays, and are some independent folks, and understand why it doesn't often really makes business sense for them to be around for a virtual meeting at this time. But is there anything that we could do to have, say, at least one Woodland Partnership meeting that could focus on these topics, in which we could get some of them to participate?
I think so. I think there's a couple of them that would that have the interest and would take the time to zoom in, or maybe it'd be a field workshop. Maybe it'd be something that we could do out on the job site kind of thing, do a field session. Sure. That's a potential there. Because I know Bob, RIFCO board meetings, he zooms in on those, those are in the evening. So when you got employees running around, and you've got, if you devote 2 hours of a day to a session, but we can at least get them to, make a short presentation or something like that at some point in the near future. Yeah.
Right. Good suggestion. We'll follow.
And
up.
then maybe he could provide some input on what sort of things we could include in our strategic plan moving forward to help them out, to help out the cause, so to speak.
Thanks. So just wanted to bring up, sort of to throw out for discussion, a couple of the policy and economics focus area priority activities, that being the work on the forest conservation and renewable energy siting best practices, and forest succession or estate planning. I know that a couple of our members who are very active on that. Kate and Scott, and then sort of the policy and legislative arena aren't able to be here right now, but just wanted to provide an opportunity for discussion on those things. I do think that our work is a little more sort of codified there, or on the legacy planning front. We are trying to follow through and with Brendan from DEM and the Nature Conservancy and Kate and getting this version of the Protecting Your Legacy publication for Rhode Island, hopefully in the coming months. Then on the forest and renewable energy front, different partners are working in different ways. But our role is really to act as for the partnership as an expert body there. Speaking for forests, we do have a number of members or member organizations who are working on the advocacy front, but it makes sense for them to do that with their organizations rather than the partnership itself. And it's something that the Forest Conservation Forest Conservation Commission is looking at as well, through developing most important forest criteria. All right. Well, I guess we wanted to, there's the diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice topic as well that I wanted to provide a space for. Wish that we had more sort of people here to talk about it now. That we are an hour into the meeting at this point, and it may make good sense to we will be revisiting this again with with our members and others. I'm not a trained facilitator on this topic, but do my best, but wanted to provide a space to talk about that. Certainly the survey respondents indicated that there's strong interest in this area, a lot of ideas about how we might approach it or start to work on it. I guess I sense some uncertainty as well, and also the order in which or how we might go about doing that. One survey responded sort of mentioned the self examination and getting some help and organizing ourselves or considering things as sort of a first step before going out more broadly. There's the mention of the person working on EJ issues with DEM, who might be able to work with a partnership. I think that's a good suggestion myself. And I'm sure that the suggestion of choosing how to be involved and committed in a sustained sort of way, and rather than being scattered here, makes sense too. And I'll just also mention if there's anyone who's on in the meeting now, or involved with the partnership who's not able to be here today, who would like to follow up online, have a conversation with me and Kate, certainly would like to be able to do that, but understand that that's see the emphasis that this is to be a priority area for for the partnership going forward, while we're trying to figure out how to do that, and trying to tap the experience of our current and existing members and other folks who certainly I'm sure have a lot to contribute to the partnership, but may not be here yet, and to be able to work with them.
Christopher, can I say that I think our work, if we're reaching out to the urban community, urban forestry community, would naturally be the route where we could have opportunities to expand on the whole diversity, equity thing. I'm not the person to even speak about this, but there's others on the call I think know more about this or have more experience with this whole process than I do, and so I'm wondering, I think I see Molly's involved here, and I know you've got some experience, Molly. So how many of you got experience doing this, and any, not just experience, but success in reaching out and being more inclusive, and what kind of process, what does that look like,
Molly.
Happy to share my experience. I would still say I am not the expert or the person to do this, but RIA has been undergoing this process for a few years and is pretty far down it, and Northern District has taken some steps as well. Basically, the thing is, it's all a few key things I'd say is that it's all about relationship building. If you want to increase diversity in an organization, BIPOC folks know if they're being invited to tick a box, and that's happening to them a lot lately, and they don't like it. And not to generalize, I mean, I'm a white woman myself, but this is the feedback we've gotten. But if we're having a general relationship with someone because, hey, you're doing a lot of great forestry work, do you want to come to our meeting? Just reaching out that way, that it can be a long, slow process for people to, feel comfortable. I have found some basic, like 101 level introduction to DEI principles training to be useful, just to get everyone on the same page. It's a kind of training that might be review for some people, but a good facilitator can, really bring, make it beneficial for everyone, even if they've heard these terms and things before. And let's see, what else, Mark? I've been mostly a listener today because I haven't really been participating much in the Woodland Partnership, but I probably will be participating more in the future as Marina is getting called away in other directions. But Yeah, I'd be happy to bounce ideas off you and Kate, Christopher. Again, not being in any way an expert on these topics, but just someone who's been involved with it in other organizations.
Can I ask just a clarifying question? Is Chris, are you, based on the survey responses, are you looking for input on how to get programs going, or are you interested in like where to start? Because one of the things that I've found, because I've been doing a lot of at the local level, I've been doing a lot of DEI stuff, and just to echo what you just said, Molly, it's really just about building relationships. And I would hesitate. I think it's good to bring in like a facilitator if that's something that other members want. But I think in my recent experience, there's almost there's a little bit of a funny occurrence, just like BIPOC individuals don't like being asked to participate so that they can pose in the photo and say that somebody's doing DEI. It seems like a little bit of a waste of time to bring in facilitators to run programs on DEI when, you know, if it's spending money to sit in a room and talk to people about DEI, when you could use that money just to like sponsor, you know, a youth forester who, you know, happens to be from a underrepresented community, to go out and do an internship at URI, something like that. Does that make sense? So I'm curious, like if you're looking for programs or you want to have like a baseline or what you're thinking of.
We're right now, I think it's sort of open for discussion, and are sort of trying to tease out, you know, what we're looking for in thinking of. I think you know, many of us, you know, have, you know, particularly in recent years, you know, participated in, you know, some DEI trainings, you know, workshops of one sort or another. And I think, you know, somebody or who could, you know, who may have, you know, some experience in the, you know, the environmental or forest sphere, or you know, helping us with those connections might be valuable, such as the individual at DEM who I'm guessing is working with different departments there. So my initial thought is that rather than a more general sort of workshop or event. And for the, you know, the sort of the final strategic planning topic that we're going to get to shortly, I guess, is the topic of capacity. You know, what the Woodland Partnership can do, and what we might want to do, or how we can get there, and that's going to inform what we can do as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, and I know there's a lot more expertise on the call, so I don't want to take up too much mic time, but I would say there's a lot of good work being done. And my small vote would be for inviting somebody in, and maybe as an extra token of, you know, inclusion, finding a small business owner or somebody doing forestry research, or somebody doing some of the work that the partnership is already doing, who happens to be from an underrepresented community, and offer to, you know, pay them or recognize them or give them PR or something for speaking about what they do. Because I think the silly thing that I think it would be silly to like organize an event, or I'm sorry, I'm soapboxing. In my opinion, that would be really rich, but having somebody come in and present on, you know, DEI would I think be a level below where I think most of the people are on this call, who are already aware about social justice and inclusion and all that. But again, I say that with a ton of humility and just I'm soapboxing, so take that for what you will.
Mm-hmm. So, Kayla, or just so so Kate and I, recently we went on a sort of a scouting field trip to Maisie's tree farm and learned a little bit about sort of the business there and some of the educational work you're doing, and had talked about the idea of a woodland partnership field trip there. Do you think that field trip might be the sort of event in which we could spend some time getting into some of these issues? I don't know if there are others from the partners you're involved with.
Yeah. I mean, I would gladly do that, again with humility. I'm sure there's other people doing the work better than I am. So, I wouldn't say I should be the one to do it. But one example that comes to mind is so my key contacts at Southside Community Land Trust, which is a group that we're bringing the kids down, the city kids down with, is the main youth organizer is a woman of color, and her husband is a member of the Narragansett tribe. And in our initial tour through with her husband, it was just this really open conversation of how can we, or Robin in particular, Robin Spears is his name, talk about traditional ecological knowledge in a casual and accessible way to kids in the city who are coming down to look at the forest, where he's coming by this naturally and he already has a relationship with the kids, and it becomes a very inclusive, natural conversation that might lead to some crafts, or we're talking about teaching the kids about carving and using different woods and stuff, and that, without getting too academic, it's creating a space in which kids from the city, many of whom who are of color or regardless of their background, can learn about TEK. And I'm ceding my seat as the quote unquote forest owner to a couple of indigenous people to talk about historically what their people would have done, and also just modern times, the crafts. Robin's a really good craftsman, so you can show about that, if that makes sense.
Well, thanks for sharing that example. I mean, I think there's a lot that we can do with that. Right now the Woodland Partnership, it doesn't have a budget, so we can't pay sort of people through our organizations.
And I should say that might be something that that's one of the things I'm trying to figure out with my business, is making enough overhead to make those payments. So if I talk with Robin and he'd be into it, we could talk about how Maisie's Tree Farm could pay him like a consulting fee or something like that for doing a little presentation on that, if you'd feel comfortable. But just to throw that.
Sounds good to me. Another sort of possible avenue to approach this is that I know that a number of our member organizations have been doing work on this front, and perhaps some of them would be willing to share what they've been doing, how it may have changed their focus a little bit, activities in that we could learn, we could all learn from that, and surely would benefit the Woodland Partnership. David, I see your hand up.
Well, yeah. So just what you were saying, and I put it together with something that Caleb just said. So the Natural History Survey has been working for the last almost a year now to develop, just strengthen longstanding ties with the Narragansett tribe. And on my, if we were going to do partner updates, I would update people to say that we've been invited. The Narragansett tribe is invited us to have BioBlitz on tribal land in June. And it's going to be a really awesome mashup of traditional scientists and traditional ecological knowledge. So everybody can put it in their calendar, June 9 and 10 in Charlestown, and Science Central will be at the tribal meeting grounds. And we've got a couple of other things we're working on for partnerships with the tribe. And sort of along those lines, I was thinking, Caleb, if you need a little money to to show respect for Robin's time and expertise, the survey could probably put a little money into a program that he might participate in or lead for the Woodland Partnership. If that helps, we can talk about that later.
Well, David, thanks.
That sounds
thanks
great.
For letting us know.
That's awesome. That's really great.
That sounds like a really great opportunity, for the Natural History Survey in the tribe, and hopefully the Woodland Partnership and some of our members can participate in that. I know that, or I believe we're undertaking a sort of a biophysical inventory of tribal lands, and depending on what may be available to share, perhaps or that's something that we could learn from too.
Yeah.
Well, true that this is a topic we're all gonna continue learning. I don't really even want to say we're leaving it now. This is going to be a part of the partnership going forward, together with all these other things we've been talking about. But did finally want to just touch a bit on the topic of the capacity of the Woodland Partnership, and that as you guys know, right now it's me and Kate who've been coordinating it, each of us with a fraction of our time, and fortunately we've been able to continue doing that as each of us have made different professional transitions over the past couple of years, and are I believe both of us interested in continuing to do that, though in the where things are currently, we don't have I'm just gonna speak a bit for Kate as well here, if she was, but the capacity to to do a lot more just in terms of putting time in with our other responsibilities. That is a limiting factor there. Was really encouraging to see the survey responses and people being willing to host a partnership event, represent the partnership somewhere, or help with communications. I think to really sustain the partnership or advance it to the level that we could really undertake some of these different projects or initiatives that we've been talking about and have come up in the plan, would be to bring on that that part-time coordinator, or add capacity in another way if there's if there's another way to do that. And we've know that there's several member organizations that have said that they would be up for hosting the coordinator, and have thought that this would most likely be through some sort of traditional grant. Maybe it's in could be put into one of these ones related to Inflation Reduction Act funding that's coming down the pike. But I think that is something that we do really need to seriously consider to be able to sustain the partnership for another 10 years, say. And just wanted to to bring that up, and just throw that out for ideas that people might have, or discussion related to that. See, there are a couple of things in the chat here. Amanda's just shared some contact for the I believe the individual working on EJ issues at DEM. Thank you. Well, if we don't have anything, more concrete right now, and understand that we wouldn't, I would just say, as for those of you who look at grant RFPs, or considering forest legacy grants, or USDA state grants, other opportunities to think about ways that we might be able to write in a sort of a bit of time for the Woodland Partnership could work on whatever the issue is that the grant's about, be it urban forestry or oak resiliency, or introducing urban kids to urban woodlands, but that some of that time could build capacity of the partnership that would help pay dividends. And if you looking at some of the other RCPs in the network that have been able to do that, some of them they've really been able to accomplish some remarkable things. And for those of you who have let's say web communication skills or web editing skills, and might be interested in doing a little bit of work on the the Woodland Partnership website, or building that out, I am the official manager of the Rhode Island Woods website now, but could work on finding a way to bring you in, so that you could do a bit of work there, or adding more complex media than I really know how to do right now, whether that's imagery, videos, audio clips, that sort of thing. But we'll try to keep it going as best I can. Well, thank you.
I was just gonna say, I was gonna try to lasso someone here at the meeting to comment, because Paul Dolan with RC&D, you guys have done a fair amount of this type of work, working with grants, working through with USDA funding on a variety of topics. It seems like you're the go-to fiscal agent for a lot of things, and I'm just wondering if what Christopher was just talking about might somehow fit into your programs.
Yeah, we'd be more than willing to sponsor, coordinate, and help with that. I mean, we did it initially with the first grant that came up with the Rhode Island Foundation, and we sponsored the forestry for the birds. So we're in the business, and a lot of the programs we've piloted in the past.
Yep, the RC&D certainly has been our fiscal champion thus far over the life of the partnership to date, with the National Rhode Island Foundation grant for the strategic plan, forestry for Rhode Island's birds, and we appreciate that, and you're almost always, of course, participating in the meetings and field trips, Paul.
But is there opportunity to, as you go to the USDA for your funding rounds, is there an opportunity to incorporate some of what Christopher was referring to as special projects under RCD?
Yes, there is. So when we rewrite our narrative going into next October, at the end of the summer going into October, we can always put in that we would look at an award or be able to sponsor someone along that line.
So it wouldn't be for a general, hey, we need a coordinator for the partnership. It would be more of a project specific type of thing. Is that what I'm?
Yeah, I mean, we do that for the Avaya Farm. We've done it for other groups. Actually, we subawarded them, just split with URI, but we subaward with URI for 6 to 7 years.
Yeah, so I think nobody wants to just provide funding for the administration of the partnership and keep it going. But if our efforts are towards furthering forest legacy planning or urban youth in the woods or climate resiliency on Rhode Island's forests, just to give 3 examples of picking out of the air, then it's something that they can get more interested in. And of course, it would need to be given more shape, with the details of that program. So thanks for keeping us in mind as those come out and you review those. So I think going forward here, over just given our capacity, it's sort of taken a while to go through this sort of mini strategic planning and the strategic plan update process. I think it has been worthwhile, but Kate and I will work on sort of bringing this into the format of the previous plan and updating the stewardship and policy and economics focus area, perhaps with a maybe a not sure just how we're going to include whether urban forestry will fall within stewardship or sort of be its own thing, and then the diversity, equity, and inclusion, but to try to get something in there and down so we can conclude that process and move forward with the plan, knowing that some of the specific activities are going to be fleshed out over time. So really appreciate everyone participating in what I thought was a pretty robust discussion for a Zoom meeting, with everybody taking time, and it not being a glamorous meeting when we have a guest speaker, but good to be able to take the time to do this as we start the year. Thanks, Doug. So recognizing that it's Q3, we're gonna have an opportunity for a round of updates. I don't think we'll do sort of separate sort of policy and general updates. If you have an update now that you can share, or you'd like to share, you can do so, and then we'll just talk about the next meeting, and then we'll sign off for today. So any updates that I would like to share? Molly, I see your hand up.
Hey, just so everybody knows, I know that Christopher, you and Kate had been representing this group on the RCP network events, and Marina was going to take that on for a time. She and I discussed, and given like the workload and the topic of those events, we thought it might make more sense for me to take on that role of going to those meetings. So I just wanted to let everyone know that I was doing that. And so far, I really enjoy it. I think it's very beneficial, and I'm happy to continue that role and represent the Woodland Partnership there. And I'll be coming to these meetings more to make sure I'm up to date on this group's work to share with them.
Great, thanks for letting us know, Molly. And yeah, so there's the Regional Conservation Partnership Network has a steering committee, with a role for a person from each state. So Molly's really, representing not just the Rhode Island Woodland Partnership, but Rhode Island there. And I think it's important to have our Rhode Island's voice there, because it's some of the issues that we're dealing with can be quite different from Massachusetts or Vermont or Maine or whatever. So it sounds like you've coordinated that all with Highstead and
Yeah.
the Muse.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
Any other updates?
Just
Doug.
a little plug for the podcast I'm doing. So I have it's called This Old Tree. It's a podcast and now it's a radio show because it was picked up by WCRI in Southern Rhode Island. And it's about heritage trees and the human stories behind them. So if you listen to podcasts, check it out. And just thought I'd share.
Thanks, Doug. I've enjoyed listening to the first few episodes of your podcast, and I have found it a wonderful vehicle for having conversations with people whom I know in different capacities about trees and stewardship. And it's been a really interesting jumping off point for that in different ways. So I'll encourage you all to check it out sometime when you can. Mark.
RIWP has got a workshop coming up in March 11th. It's going to be down at the West Greenwich Community Center. It's a statewide workshop on so the woodlot business management approach, and something we did 10 years ago that was pretty popular. And so we're going to put that on again. Things about business structure, insurance requirements, legal stuff that active woodlot managers should know.
Thanks. So that's oriented towards forest landowners managing their land from the sort of the business perspective. Is that right, Mark?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. David.
Besides BioBlitz June 9 and 10, I wanted to let people know we're having our art show and open house next Tuesday from 5 to 7 at our East Farm office. So the show, we put this up every January for our open house, and it features art inspired by nature, volunteered by our members. And we have some wood carving this year, so it's got a forestry connection. And of course, anybody's welcome to stop by next Tuesday, the 24th, from 5 to 7 at our office at East Farm. And we're coming up on the deadline for submissions for the Rhode Island Nature Video Festival that the survey co-sponsors with ECRI every year. So, and that's the video festival itself takes place February 26th, and we're going to be live at Rhode Island College for that. So it's a new northern end of the state. The first festival was at Save the Bay. This is the first time we've been back in the last 5 years to Providence. So if you have videos, it can be anything from 10 seconds of an animal doing something interesting to a scripted nature documentary. The rules are on ECRI's website or our social media, and you can participate in the video festival. So hope to see everybody there.
Great.
I'm not going to submit video from the Rhode Island Woodland Partnership meetings to the Nature Video Festival. Just saying.
But David, a question about that. After the video festival, might some of this also be available on your YouTube channel and perhaps getting more views than our meetings?
Yeah. So the video festival reel, the sort of all the festival videos together in one reel is put up on our YouTube channel every year. So you can actually see the last, I think, 3 on our YouTube channel. ECRI, I think, keeps up the links to the individual videos on their website, at least the last couple of years. You could probably still find the video festival page on the ECRI website includes links to all the individual videos. And we've been having Viewers' Choice Awards the last 2 years, and this year the Viewers' Choice Award prizes are sponsored by Roger Williams Park Zoo. So if you attend the festival, you can vote on your favorite video and they will win a valuable prize.
Awesome.
Which is not just a membership in the zoo. It's more than that.
Sounds like fun. Brendan.
I'd just like to put a short plug in for the Rhode Island Forest Legacy Program. We are always still accepting applications. We closed a conservation easement project earlier this month with Providence Water. There's been an influx of money to the federal program through the IRA. And so our next grant cycle will be in the fall, and we hope to prioritize applications sometime this spring.
So Brendan, for landowners who some of us might be working with, who might be, if we learn they are interested in conserving their land, how should we make them aware of Forest Legacy Program?
Certainly, they can go right onto the DEM Division of Forest Environment website.
Okay.
We have a landing page for the Rhode Island Forest Legacy Program, and that includes the application and informational sheet about the program. And they're also very welcome to reach out to me directly, or if you would like to introduce them, I would be very happy to speak with them as well. And hoping our Protect Your Legacy publication might do some to help promote the program too.
Sounds good. And I imagine your contact info is on that webpage.
Yes, sir.
Right. I think Amanda has just put the page there in the chat. Thank you, Amanda. Any other updates?
Yeah, we're having the Enviathon once again this year, May 19th. It's a Friday, the 3rd Friday in May. We're looking at having it back at Goddard Park. We're having one of our field trips, which will be headed off to Prudence Island. The Enviathon is May 19th. We're having a field trip out to Prudence Island, dealing with climate change, forestry, soils, aquatics, and wildlife. That's April 8th. For the students and advisors, we're always looking for donors, judges, people that want to participate in the program, so they can contact me at any time. WOW program, which is Women Owning Woodlots. We had a program this week on insect and disease with 2 of the Woodland Partnership people, Cynthia Colwell and Elena Russell. And we're looking at gearing up to try a very unique one on women and chainsaws, trying to do a program along that line.
Great.
That's where we are.
All right. Well, assuming that there are no further updates, thanks to everyone for participating in the meeting this afternoon. Really appreciate all your thoughtful comments, contributions, and suggestions. We'll be moving forward with those, and when we're ready, we'll certainly share a version of those updated sections of the plan going forward. So our next Woodland Partnership meeting is going to be the 3rd Thursday in February, which is the 16th. I believe that we're gonna have a presentation on the Dirt to Trees to Wildlife program from Steve Roberge from the University of New Hampshire Cooperative Extension. And there's been a lot of interest in forest soil productivity in the state recently, both to do with the Rhode Island Forest Health Works, RCPP, and also identifying most important forest criteria. And this is something that the Dirt to Trees to Wildlife program has gotten into, the soil categorization that some of us have learned about in the past few weeks. So hope that it may be valuable to us on that topic. Along with integrating forestry and wildlife habitat management, since we want to have more communication with wildlife professionals, not to mention soil scientists as well. Steve, he does have a commitment at our usual meeting time at 1 o'clock, so we're going to move the meeting up to 12 p.m. So that he can join us that day. So let's plan on 12 to 2 on February 16th. We'll just confirm to you, and we'll get the email and link out as usual. Again, thanks so much. Good to see you all today, and look forward to seeing you out in the woods or around the state.
Thank you, Christopher. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, all. Good job, Christopher.
Thank you.